Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to Crafting Annihilation, my weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you are playing characters Mannix, Kales, Gillian, George, or Theron, please turn back now. This is not meant for you. For the rest of you, welcome. We stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page as well as read weekly session write-ups at roguewatson.com. And if you'd like to support my channel, please go to patreon.com/roguewatson. Personal shoutouts to my patrons, the platinum level Andrew and Brian, and my gold level RPG Papercrafts. Thank you so much for your support. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net, and for streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. I promise I will switch over to me. I've got a million tabs open right now. So organized. Where am I? There I am. Hello. So this Crafting Annihilation is for Thursday, September 6th, I believe. And I'm still debating on, wasn't sure whether to put them as, you know, part 1, part 2, or session 1, session 2, and there's always the worry that we'll skip a week of our regular show, but I'll still do the live stream, or one way or the other, so I don't want it to get too confusing. I'm adding them all to the same playlist, which hopefully is good, that people like watch a session and then watch my dumbass talk for, you know, an hour, and then watch the next session. Hopefully that'll work out okay, but the main way I'm doing it right now is just put a date on there. So I'm just going to slap the date, and then that'll hopefully, you'll realize which session this is. Hopefully it won't be too confusing in terms of having the VOD up, since I know this is kind of a weird time. I appreciate people joining me live, but definitely a different time than our usual Friday evening. It is currently Thursday morning, at least my time. Obviously, people around the world, all kinds of different times. I believe we had somebody from Australia pop in, which is awesome because I think that's like 16 hours time difference or something crazy. So love globalization. It's awesome. I love having different people. So this is for prepping session 2. So we had session 1 last week, which is obviously a very important session. We already did our character creation in session 0, which is very important that we establish, you know, baseline rules and do it's 7 p.m. your time, Juicy. Okay. Europe then? I think that's plus 6 hours. You're probably GMT then. You know, as growing up, you don't learn time zones very well, but like nowadays, I don't see how nobody would know like time zones instantly, because it's just so important with everything being international and whatnot. At least, especially as an American, we're really dumb when it comes to caring about other countries and time zones. I just got totally off track too. So anyway, yeah, the session 0 was very important with character creation. We established that. The one thing I did do for session 1 was prologues, and some of my players are more comfortable doing like a real deep dive into a backstory, and for some of them, they might normally like that, but they didn't necessarily want to do a big one here. And what I did is I shared a Google Doc, you know, weeks before we started this campaign, with kind of just a primer of information for Tomb of Annihilation. So it was like, you're going to be in Schult. You know, it was, you know, and like here's the kind of things that you, not spoilery, but just like, you know, if your backstory involves a specific region of the Sword Coast, for example, it's going to be very difficult for me to implement that in the campaign. So I had to make sure my player characters would have relevance in Schult, and that doesn't necessarily mean like you're from Schult or you're, you know, a native race to Schult or whatever about that, but just that they had a specific personal quest line that would draw them to Schult. And I literally made a subheading, and I went over this in the session 1. Where is that? Under Journal, which this is partly what I do for Roll20 in general, is I actually add all of these quests in here to just as a way for both me as a DM and my players to keep track of what the hell kind of quests they're doing. Obviously, it's literally inspired from just every video game RPG ever after a certain point that you know, included a quest journal that's just organized about here's, you know, where you got the quest, here's the information you have, and I believe I make them editable by the players so that if they learn information, they can add things in there. Usually I think it's me adding in information because I just end up doing that. But I think I gave them the option to add in their own information. In fact, I even wrote, I might have overstepped bounds and even wrote their personal quest in the first person. But I think, and again, it depends on the players. Like Chris, obviously, he's the big theater, nerd in school, and was our DM for Storm King's Thunder, so he's big into role playing, and he wrote this big, elaborate, really flavorful, awesome backstory. And that's not going to be the case for every player who's going to feel comfortable doing that. So I would do like just a couple, paragraphs for others, and for everybody. Before I did that, I talked to the player, and just had kind of a informal, like, here's my thoughts. What are your thoughts for your character that you want to play? And then they tell me that, and I said, okay, here are my thoughts about how I can tie that character into the campaign. And you work together, you just communicate with your players, and you find a way to include them into the Chult storyline. And I'm doing that with these personal quests, which I think I went over this in the first Crafting Annihilation. That's all been a blur now, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself too much, but since this went off in the session 1, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about it here. And one thing I did do, this was like a last-minute decision, and this was kind of one of the biggest things that ended up happening in terms of like the comments I'm getting on the videos and the reactions, is that when I read everyone's prologues, which I had written and again had gone through, teased out a couple sentences about like what I want that character's story to be, they didn't necessarily know what their prologue event was, so that was kind of new information. And then to include the players, and this is something I learned from Chris when he did Storm King's Thunder, is he had everybody roll a skill check, and based on that skill check they either got a different kind of information or something. And the one I did is I had them roll on the trinket table, which ended up being kind of a funny situation. So this trinket table is included in the player's handbook, and it's a list of 100 just random as hell items, just little non-magical weird items. It's a really fun table to just sit there and read. It's on, I think it's 160. I randomly still have that off the top of my head. It's a really fun read, and we have not done it in any of our campaigns because we just forget, and it's just supposed to be like this extra fun thing you can do when creating a character, is just have this weird object that maybe can be like a jumping off point for your character to use in some way, or work into their backstory or something, or you could just forget about it. Like, it's kind of up in the air. And I had my players roll for just a random one for their backstory, and then ended up being like kind of extra ridiculous, beginning with the first one. Good afternoon, Captain Pugwash. With the Noble Triton getting a jar of lard as her cherished item that she remembers from her brother. Oh, I don't know what to do with a jar of lard. Why would the character carry a jar of lard? And they were all just kind of silly like that. There was a George the Turtle got a like purple handkerchief embroidered with an archmage from his turtle warrior mentor. So I'm trying to figure out ways to work into that. Maybe you all have some ideas. I posted something in the Patreon about people have ideas about that. Maybe we, making them. It was suggested to make them maybe a minor magical in some way, have a magical effect. I was thinking, and something again I learned from video games, is maybe an item that becomes magical in some way when the players progress through their personal quests. That could be used, or I just forget about them. I don't know. It's tricky. It's something I had to write down, and now okay, now I got to figure out what to do with these trinkets in their story. I was not, obviously planning for any of a specific object because I had them roll it live at the table, and I try to, you prep a lot of stuff, but I don't know what the ratio is, but some of it is just going to be out of your hands. You just kind of have to roll with it, and this was certainly one of them. So kind of a goofy experiment. Let's see, what else happened in Session 1? Session 1, as I've mentioned this time and time again, I hate the way Tomb of Annihilation starts with the teleporting to Port Nyanzaru and just meeting this kind of random adventurer benefactor who gives you the mission. None of that is good at all. I love this adventure, but that hook is lame. But I had some good, we established like a cinematic universe with our own D&D campaign, and so I had characters I could pull from previous campaigns, which I thought would be a really fun idea. And I even had Chris come in as a guest star to use Kalinar, which has been kind of a fan favorite in our series. His very zealous, righteous, tier-following Dragonborn paladin, and in the epilogue to Prince of the Apocalypse, and we don't necessarily retire our characters, but we do have like an epilogue about, okay, what are these characters doing? And most of them aren't becoming active adventurers anymore, which is why we kind of start new characters. But these events and characters exist in the universe. And at the end of Princes of the Apocalypse, spoiler alert, I use Renwick Caradun, who's this cool, like, semi-friendly lich. Kalinar basically pledges a service to him and starts up kind of a chapter of the Order of the Gauntlet in the Somber Hills. So I use that because one of the hooks in Tomb of Annihilation is that Acerak, or they learn about the Soulmonger from a lich. So that immediately started off my, light bulb moment is, okay, I'll use the lich that we have in our previous campaign, an actual friendly lich. So I had this cutscene established, and I did it by just kind of cheating with the way sending stones are used. I have a big problem with communication in Tomb of Annihilation because there's a lot of things that are supposed to happen, and the players are like stuck in the jungle. And I know it was mentioned last week. Somebody asked, are you going to be teleporting, allow like some kind of teleportation between, out in the jungle and Port Nyanzaru? Because otherwise, would your players even ever return there? Because it's such a pain in the ass to travel, given all the random encounters. And my answer would be yes. At certain intervals, they would be allowed to travel back for sure. I just think you have to allow that. I just completely lost my train of thought again. Fuck. What was I talking about, chat? Oh my lord! I've been watching the Kavanaugh hearings all morning. American politics is so fucked right now, but it is anything but boring. Also, as I imagine most countries go through some pretty fucked up politics. I can't remember it all. Let's move on then. I just had a complete brain fart about what I was talking about. Did you have the talk with the players? If so, how did it go? What talk do you mean? Do you mean the talk about like player death or anything? Because I have not had that talk yet. And that's kind of a weird... I should have that talk, but... I don't see anyone dying until the Tomb of Annihilation itself, which is also tricky because at that point the characters, we've probably been playing them for like a year, and that's going to be really painful to lose somebody. So I don't know. That might be something I go over later to make it relevant, because we have the talk now. It might be different, a year from now after they've been playing those characters for a while. Lack of civilization being stuck in the jungle adds a lot of tension. Yeah, I do like that tension, and it's the amount of difficulty in the jungle is obviously just going to be all me. And a lot of it is tied to the allied NPCs they have as well, and they've certainly added some. Okay, I know what I was talking about, the fucking cutscene I had. So, sending stones, I tied in Undril Silver Tusk, which is this half-orc that they meet in Port Nyanzaru in the book, and she just gives them the side quest. There's a lot of really good side quests. She gives them the side quest to go to Camp Vengeance to just go there and help the Order of the Gauntlet there. So I thought, okay, well, I've got the Order of the Gauntlet tie-in. I've got my own friendly lich. I'm going to use all these things my way, which is I'm going to put Undril on the boat for all the players to get on, meet her on the boat. She explains some background lore on Chult, and then through her, the players actually get the main quest. I originally had the players get the main quest just showing up because I forced them to, and then accepting the main quest and then going on the ship and all that. They didn't really feel organic, though. It felt, since I had these personal quests, I thought, well, the personal quests are all there as reasons to get the players to Chult. Like, Mannix's personal quest is to find Artis Cimber. Gillian's personal quest is to find the Bitch Queen, which is this ship from the Turtle package that I'm tying in there. And Theron's quest is to find the Wormheart Mine. I'm basically using I'm combining Hugh Hackenstone's quest into a player character's quest. So they all have their own reasons for getting to Chult. So I'm just using that because it's always weird when you just had to have this disparate group of very different, diverse backgrounds, and it's like, well, why did they actually come together? And it's usually that session one just kind of glosses over it. It's like, oh, you're all in the tavern together, and you just all randomly, and you get over it after a couple sessions. You kind of get used to each other's personality, player character personality. I assume the players are already, friendly, amicable with each other at least, and they kind of mesh together and they go from there. But those first sessions are kind of awkward because you're like, well, why do the characters give a shit about each other? And in this way, I did two things. I gave some of them connections with each other, which was a good piece of advice I read from somebody else. It was like, have some of your character player characters know each other. So in this case, I had Mannix and Kaless work together. She tried to like rob him at knife point, and he hired her for a job, which I thought was a funny bit. And then Theron and George just kind of met randomly through a dangerous situation, and then Gillian actually just shows up during that opening sequence. She comes up, and I had this big description of kind of her personality. Of she's just surrounded by fans and fawning over and all that. So I had everybody meet together, and then I was hoping there would be some intermingling, and I think there was. There was a lot of role playing in that early like first hour of the session. We actually went a lot slower than I anticipated because there was just a lot of really fun role playing, and part of it was I had to do the cutscene with Undril and the Sending Stone, which I broke the rules on that. I just had this like literally like holographic projection show up so I could do this cutscene between Renwick and Kalinar and the rest of the team, and they explained how a Serac came in and stole Renwick's phylactery, and then they learned about which I believe I had Kalinar even say like I contacted a friend from the Harpers. That friend is obviously Talus, a former party member of his during our Princes of the Apocalypse and Lost Mine of Phandelver campaign, and I tied in the Company of the Yellow Banner, which is another thing from the book, and I made them the ones that discovered a Serac, or at least the vision of a Serac in Omu, and then all of that is being teased to the players ahead of time. And the plan is the only lead they have going into Chult is to speak to the Merchant Prince Wakanga, because he will then give the players the quest, or he'll give the update for the Company of the Yellow Banner, which he'll state like, here is, and I think what I'm going to do is give them like his Sending Stone, but have it be kind of like the arcane version of not working right, kind of sputtering, because I'm going to have the company's Sending Stone be destroyed along with all of them. They were brutally killed in the Tomb of Annihilation. But I'm going to have the players be able to roll like some kind of check maybe once per day to try to recall a message that was sent, like an answering machine. And again, I'm breaking all the rules of Sending Stones. I need them to be exposition devices, because without the Sending Stones, there's not a good way without just having characters randomly show up in the jungle, and that feels really forced. So I have to kind of expand and use more Sending Stones than what is written in the campaign. So if anybody wants to write in with a YouTube comment saying this is not how Sending Stones work, like, I know, I hear you. I'm gonna have to change things around a little bit. But Wakanga will give them the other half of the Sending Stone for the Company of the Yellow Banner, and then they, one of the players, will be able to get one of these journal entries I wrote, basically dictating the entire journey of the Company of the Yellow Banner, which will be, I think, a good hint. And then they will also be recommended to visit the Temple of Sovereign, which is the other big lead in the main quest, and then from there they will learn, they'll get a quest to do. This is actually from the Adventurers League, City on the Edge. I'm using one of those quests where they have to, there's like a ziggurat. In fact, I can show those maps. What am I doing just sitting here on this map? So let's see, we've seen that one. Our group totally screwed interaction with Wakanga. It went bad. Oh no! Tried to steal Flatmore, then we lit his guard on fire. So this is, Brian, you raise an interesting point of, I feel like, here's, I got 4 thoughts. Here's the interesting thing. We get a battle map of the Merchant Prince's villa, and they're supposed to be, you can use them for any of the Merchant Princes, and there's a little bit about how they, you can flavor them for each Merchant Prince. Each one would have a different kind of, like Wakanga's have a bunch of arcane shit everywhere. Brian, would you have done all that? Well, I don't know if... Did you get the battle map, in other words? If my players see a map, they're thinking fight, right? Like, you're seeing that battle map, you're seeing the grids, you're thinking, okay, this is a fight situation. Whereas, if they don't see that, and maybe this is more a Roll20 thing, if they don't see that and it's just me talking, and maybe they get like a picture, then I don't think they're going fight, at least immediately. They're going, okay, this is a role-playing situation. And I've done this before in Princes of the Apocalypse. I specifically had, I would at some point realize this effect, and I would hold the battle map in reserve if I wanted to introduce a situation that I didn't necessarily want them to immediately think fighting was. And I mean, fighting is always an option. It's D&D. You can do whatever the hell you want as a player to an extent. But I just think that like mentally, if I literally move the players onto a battle map and you're talking token to token, then you're looking around thinking tactically, right? You're thinking, okay, I can jump back here and shoot this and all that, and we did not. Okay, interesting. Um, so I'm thinking that when they meet with Wakanga, I am not going to reveal that battle map, which is, I probably archived it because I archived. Oh no, there it is, Merchant Prince's Villa. So let's switch to this as it will slowly load everything. And this is, again, this is the purchase Roll20 module, so you'll see all that as well. And you can see there's the different ways you can flavor it. But I mean, it's a cool map. It's really neat, and it's honestly surprising we got a map here, because you could, you know, easily play this whole campaign and never set foot in a Merchant Prince's Villa, let alone even need the reason to have a map, because the whole thing is you just talk to a Merchant Prince. There's no... So because we have a map, now it really makes me want to do like a heist thing, right? I want to introduce maybe some kind of quest that involves like going in and stealing. So that almost feels like I'm adding too much, because I've already got a lot in Port Nyanzaru, but just the fact that we have this nice, lovely map here motivates me to use it in some interesting way. But otherwise, my plan is just to have Wakanga. They have to do something to earn the right to meet with him, and I have things planned for that. I do want to. I'm jumping ahead too much to Port Nyanzaru though. DM Wakanga's a bit of an asshole. Oh, I don't think he's supposed to be an asshole in the book. He's written as being kind of a dandy, like he's like seduced by smart women, and he has a bunch of arcane stuff. So I would probably. I haven't decided how I'm going to roleplay him yet, but he'll be kind of that pompous, just kind of noble, but more of like a sweet-talking, smooth talker, maybe? I don't know. I don't see necessarily straight asshole. There's certainly some merchant princes that would be straight-up assholes for sure. And that's another nice thing, is they give you the information for all of them, but I don't see myself using most of them. We use this as a heist one-shot. Oh, interesting. Generally remind the players that not all maps are combat maps, because yeah, otherwise they're going to ready to fight. Yes, yeah, and I think, you know, that is understood to an extent, but I just think, again, that kind of mental project, and I would do the same thing if when we were in Storm King's Thunder, if Chris immediately moved to a tactical map and we're walking around, then I'm immediately thinking, okay, every situation is a fight viable situation, whereas if I'm just looking at pictures and the DM is talking to me about a situation, then I don't immediately go there. I think, okay, I think like an adventure game. You know, I'm like, okay, I'm going over and talk to people or using objects or puzzles or whatever. So that's just, I don't know, maybe that's just me. Let's talk about this shipwreck map, though. What do you guys think about this? This whole scenario. This was, I want to cover this now because this was our session 1. This took up a good chunk of the latter half of session 1. And an interesting thing with our previous campaign that I DM'd is that I believe we never had a single session without combat, and we came close several times, but we always had at least some combat. And in Storm King's Thunder, it was notable that it happened several times where we just had no combat. It was just all like traveling or role-playing or whatever else, and that's not necessarily bad. It was actually really fun. I was surprised by that, because I feel like we're on the spectrum of like super role-playing and super murder hobo. You know, the needle points more towards murder hobo than super role-playing, but we try to have a balance in there. Sometimes. But I thought this was a cool scenario because there were harpies with the songs, there were sharks in the water, there's different things going on. You immediately disrupt the player's plans by putting them in boats with water. Interestingly enough, turtles can't swim. I didn't know that. Obviously, Raymond didn't know that until he told me. I'm glad he said something. I'm glad we figured that out early, because I just, for some reason, assumed that turtles could swim, even though it actually doesn't make sense that they could swim. They can hold their breath, but that's not the same thing as having a swim speed, which is pretty funny that we discovered that. It's like, oh yeah, okay. Gillian, however, could, which is funny because I got to unleash the sharks on her, although she'd also use her beast speech with aquatic animals, and I flavored that as basically getting rid of one of the sharks that would have come at her. I only had 4 total attack rolls against the players, if you include Summerwise, the pseudo-dragon, actually attacking Mannix to snap him out of it. And I think I hit with almost every single one of them. And again, if you count the multi-attack from the Harpy, which made this fight a little more harrowing than I expected, because if a level 1 PC gets hit, it is nasty. And I had several more Harpies waiting in the wings. I mean, the one that actually activated the song never came out. I believe I still had one more down here. There were 4 Harpies on this map, and I only ever used 2. All right, no, I used 1 because I had the other one just retreat. It was busy over here, so that's kind of how I balanced the level 1 encounter. Same with the sharks. I was just going to use however many that I needed to. But I wanted to create the feeling of making this a tense situation, but I didn't want to necessarily make this just a horrifying, like, I need to kill all the players, like, right off for them doing this was a heroic deed. It is funny that that Chris mentioned, like, oh wait, why didn't we take the priest with us? And I'm just sitting there like, why didn't you? Because she totally would have come if you would have convinced her. She's a very nice, heroic, very classically, like, heroic, like a doctor without border kind of personality. Like, she's just there to, like, heal and help people. So she would have, especially if there was a rescue attempt, which we knew that because Summerwise came, then she would have absolutely come with you guys and probably helped make that fight a lot easier, in which case I would have probably included a few more harpies. Introduce a map for reference, immediate players expect combat. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. So, and the other thing, which might be unique to the way we do it, although I think most groups do this, is I don't ever want to end in combat, and our first session was a long session. We try to go between 2.5 hours and 3 hours if we start at 9 p.m. our time, which is ending by 3 hours would be midnight. And yeah, it's Friday evening, and that's the reason we do it. So nobody's, but still, you can tell people are tired from the week and all that, and we try to limit ourselves to that time. And this one was going long. I think by the time we were ending up at the shipwreck with the time that harpy died, I think it was already like midnight, again our time. So I was wrapping stuff up. I literally just had that harpy fly away. I could have had it sit there and had them fight the harpy, but I just feel like, and you feel it as a DM when you're fighting, you feel like the climax has kind of turned at some point. Like maybe they kill the boss or they resolve a situation, but you feel like at some point in a fight, a lot of times, the players have passed the threshold of this is a dangerous situation to we are just cleaning up bad guys now. We're just going through the motion. And once they reach that point, combat becomes way less fun, way less interesting, and I think good DMs start hand-waving that stuff away. Like, okay, we've killed the main boss goblin, there's 2 goblins over here, and they just run away. Or oh yeah, there was a player's turn, they shoot one, they still had 3 hit points left, oh yeah, they're dead. That kind of thing. I think that's pretty easy to do, and that's kind of what I employed here, is I just, kept the actual creatures I had kind of close to my hand, and then just had that one harpy fly off so that they could, because I wanted to end it in the moment where Zendala appears, and it's like, oh yeah, she's here, and she's okay. And then have, Mannix's backstory, or prologue, I should say, basically already hit in session 1, which he was not prepared for that at all, to have Summerwise and Zendala here, which again, these are characters from Tomb of Annihilation. Really interesting characters, too. The spoiler is that Zendala pretends to be Artis Cimber's long-lost daughter and just tries to find him just for, I want to find my daddy. But the truth is, she is just after him for the Ring of Winter, as everybody is. She's just kind of another hunter for it. And she is hiring Mannix to help find him. Now, the weird thing here, the troubling thing is that Mannix, his character is built to roll insights and investigations and everything, so it's going to be very hard to use these kind of secretive agenda characters in my campaign. I feel like if he finds her out too much, I don't know what I'll do. My plan, let's see, let's go to my notes, which, by the way, if you're a Platinum Patreon supporter, you should have access to my Google Doc list of all my DM notes for all my sessions. I write them all on Google Docs, makes it easy. Currently I have them organized by, one of them is just the Journey to Chult, which is, I think will be just 2 sessions. That first session, and then session 2 I've got some other events planned, but they should arrive in Port Nyanzaru by the end of the second session. And then I've got a whole Google Doc of Port Nyanzaru stuff. And that's pretty much all I've been prepping right now. I tend to be... You don't want to prep too far ahead, and especially with this where I've already got the physical stuff in place. I've got the tokens, I've got the maps, I've got most of that in here. And I don't want to jump ahead too much because of the way, the campaign can change and things can shift and that kind of thing. You don't want to over-prepare. But I do want to make sure I'm prepared enough for, like, that week's session. And that's one reason I'm doing this, so I can talk through kind of my plans for that. My plan is for her to reveal that she snuck aboard a ship headed to Calimport, but a storm blew them off course, and obviously you can infer that the classic harpies drew the ship into the rocks. The ship wrecked. A lot of crew members just jumped off gleefully and swam to the harpies. A lot of them just probably died from sharks and whatnot. And then and that was kind of a cool reveal I did with Summerwise obviously joining the crew and having 3 of the 5, by the way, get failing that DC 11 saving throw for the Harpy song. That surprised me quite a bit, and I thought, oh man, this is bad. But then, of course, in 5th edition, they can redo that save at the end of every turn, and I didn't have sharks immediately in the water. It just kind of fucked up their positioning initially. But it allowed me to use Summerwise to attack Mannix, because in Zendala, in the I would say backstory, but in the events that happened, that's how Zendala resisted the Harpy songs, and why she survived is because she's got this pseudo dragon who I don't know if I'd make him like immune or whatever reason that it didn't get it's not rolling saving throw, it just makes it saving throws each time, I don't know. But anytime Zendala failed, it would attack her, which snaps her out of it. And she's actually got a mess of hit points. She's got like 70 or 80 hit points, so if anybody balks at that, she'd be like, oh yeah, she looks a lot stronger than you guys at the moment. And that was funny that I got to use that on Mannix, because that's exactly what Summerwise did, and that was one of my funniest moments in the first session, because he did 4 hit points, which is half of Mannix's health, and so he just screams that like the dragon's ripping his arm off or whatever. He has literally 8 hit points of health. This is a hilariously amazing rogue character that is not built for combat at all, and I really respect the hell out of players who build their characters without combat in mind, because that's such a big part of D&D, and it's such a big part of the way every single system works, is it works towards combat. And if you specifically build a character not for combat, then you're really, really going to feel those effects. And I thought that was delightfully funny, and I hope I don't I don't feel the need to beat up on him too much, but it was funny because he was always the toughest, strongest character in the last campaign that he played a player. Now he's by far the weakest. Excuse me. And let's see. As long as we held out the ship was lost and we were stranded. And then they were stranded for I don't know the timeline, maybe a day or two, and then she finally sent Summerwise off to get help, and then Summerwise finds them. So that's kind of their backstory. And if the players are disappointed about loot, she will pull out a coin purse and toss it at them and say that this is all that she basically had on her, and it would be I think just kind of level 1 scaled loot. Because you don't want the players to do all this and come away with kind of a snippy, rescue-y, even though it is relevant to Mannix's story. So I have some loot there, and if they talk about more loot, or if Mannix gets upset about his money, where's my money? Because I believe she promised to pay him if he found Artisimber, which he has not found Artisimber yet. She will say that she is good for it. She has a line of credit she can extend if they bring her to Port Nyanzaru. So obviously, the players will hopefully take her to Port Nyanzaru. Orome will not be happy necessarily to have her on board, to have another person on board, but kind of the rule of the ocean, I guess, is that you kind of help fellow ships in need, and that would be part of helping her. The other scripted events I have is I want to use the pirates, because we are obviously going to Chult via ship, and I feel like there are active pirates out, and why wouldn't you use that? Now, this is going to be a very, very tricky scenario, because I want to use the pirates, but I don't want my players to fight them. And that is always a tricky scenario, although here they are level 1 PCs, and I think they know that at level 1 you can't just decide to fight. It's interesting when they reach, and PCs become like superheroes at some point. Pretty much around the time they reach tier 2, they're as strong or as stronger than most guards in the universe. So, it's like playing an MMO, but like already at level 6, you can like take out town guard. I mean, kind of, like 1-on-1 or something, but it's a lot different. You just feel that power curve is way sharper. And I feel like in a lot of these situations where you don't want your players to fight, the players always have that option on the table after they reach a certain level, which is interesting later on. But in the early game, at level 1 especially, I don't think a lot of players would even table that. Is like, oh, we need to have a stand-up fight here. That's not going to happen. I don't think. And because I'm going to very much dictate the fact that there's twice the crew on this ship. And what I'm going to do... That rule a lot when they hit the tomb, almost guaranteed. Which rule are you talking about, Brian? Sorry, I'm catching up on the chat. If I'm a habit right, I ask myself more what trait, skills, feats make sense. The character in the comment, what is cool? Yeah, I respect that. I think that's really cool. I mean, obviously you want to play a character, you want to role play. I just feel like the starting point for a lot of players is what is a cool character that excels in combat, but then here's their other stuff that they do. And rarely do I have a player that comes across as what is a cool character that excels in other stuff and doesn't even have combat skills like whatsoever. Like obviously they have the built-in, stuff that their class gives them, but they really don't have that, and I respect that. Money was an issue from the start. Cost problems, what we couldn't do with the part. Yeah, that's so. And that's another interesting thing, is that money scales insanely high in D&D 5th edition. Really, all editions of D&D is the loot. And it's also a problem because you don't get as many magic items in 5th edition. They kind of bake that stuff into characters already, but you do get a lot of gold. You get so much gold you can just buy countries and shit by the time you're done with your adventuring career. But early on it can be a concern. I do plan on having things happen in Port Nyanzaru that will reward money to the players, and then they will hopefully use that money to be able to do other things in Port Nyanzaru. And I will probably go over a lot more of that in my next Crafting Annihilation, because that one will be all Port Nyanzaru. So I'll really go over that. Again, I expect my players to get to Port Nyanzaru by the end of tomorrow's session. So I'll definitely go over that. But I have several quests that are started and completed in Port Nyanzaru, and the rewards can definitely be monetary. And then from there, they can use that money to buy, supplies. Canoes would be a big thing. You have to buy canoes to actually travel via the river. And I do want to be able to have the players be able to return to Port Nyanzaru at times, so they can hopefully spend their money there, because I think you can straight up buy +1 weapons and stuff, which is probably pretty good, because I don't think there's an opportunity to be able to normally be able to do that. So anyway, the other scripted event I have is the pirate, and I just have and you can see here I've got my pirate. All right, this is the Brazen Pegasus ship, which you've seen a lot in the first session, and the second one would be this one that I just move over here. And this is really just supposed to be a scripted event where I use Captain Lascalar of the Sturge, and something I really like. It's still loading the background. That's why it's fuzzy. There he goes. I really like the pirate aspect of Tomb of Annihilation. There are 3 pirate captains and 3 pirate ships that have essentially joined forces. They have a anchorage off the coast of Chult, further to the south, and there's always one out roaming around doing pirate shit. And I really want to establish that this is a threat. This is a problem. Anytime a ship comes and goes from Chult, so obviously the players will have this, and it's a cool way to introduce a villain. Without having a big combat scenario, and they're not designed to fight. And I would suggest the players hide or disguise themselves, and Zendala has the invisibility spell, so she would definitely she has up to 5th level slots, so the first thing I would do is suggest that she have her suggest, or somebody suggest, she can cast invisibility on herself and up to 3 other characters, I believe, which would be great for especially some of the more noticeable characters like George the frickin' Turtle. Or they could hide somewhere, or they could just disguise themselves as another crew member. But I essentially want the players to be able to witness what's going on. It does feel a little bit of that, DM masturbatory thing of I'm going to have this cutscene. I just want my players to sit here and watch this nicely. So this is part of the, how is this going to go? Because I do have this scene set up, but I want the players to be there and be able to interact somewhat and fuck it up without, getting captured or anything like that, anything majorly serious. So hopefully we can get that off. But the plan will be Lascalar shows up, and we basically just explain the fact that the pirates exist. They're a thing. They come across. They're almost to the Bay of Chult, and the ship is there, just blocking the way. And they have the choice, well, we need to go to Port Nyanzaru, but he's in the way. We can't really outrun him from his distance. He'll just shoot us. And Ortimes just makes the decision of, we're just going to go and let them board us, and You know what it reminded me of? It's like a Negan for any Walking Dead fans. If you're still Walking Dead fans after all this that's happened, um, like when Negan treated the Alexandria crew in The Walking Dead, where he came in, it's that gangster protection money kind of thing, where he just comes in and steals other shit, treats everybody like garbage, but they kind of just sit there and take it. And that's kind of what I have planned here between Lascalar and Ortome, where he just comes in with his crew. He's very much a dick, but he's kind of Jack Sparrow esque, where he's very suave. I'll probably use that kind of a voice where he's like, let's see, where's some dialogue I wrote for him. He's got his feathered hat, his bright red cloak. He's got that cloak of the mountebank, which is the like dimensional door casting cloak. So be like, Ortome is like, I didn't invite you on my ship, Lascalar. I didn't join your little boys club. Want no part of it. And Lascalar will be like, I'm hurt. You already insulted the Trident by not accepting our invitation. It's the best thing to ever happen to organized piracy here in Schult. That kind of thing. And it would explain the pirate situation in Schult, the fact that there are other pirates around in Schult. So the players will learn all this through this scene that happens. And then the pirates will go through and basically just take a bunch of shit, kind of skim like their portion off the top. And Ortome warns to the players ahead of time, like if they see you guys, like that might be part of their like thing, is they might take some of you on board, or sit there and interrogate you, or whatever they want to do. Like we can't really stop them. Like they're a bigger crew. We cannot really fight them hand to hand. We just have to like lay low and get through this, and we'll all get out of it okay. So I want to make sure I get all that across from Ortome before this event happens, and then unleash this event. And hopefully it'll go off without too much of a hit. I am honestly secretly kind of glad that Raymond won't be here tomorrow. He's actually going to be on a 10-day European vacation, and we miss him terribly. But if anybody's gonna very much want to fuck this up, it's gonna be him and his characters. But otherwise, this is just kind of a cutscene that happens. I think it'll be an extended role-playing situation, but hopefully it'll be fun for the players to witness all that. The one interesting bit I have is that the Kaldos, which is their sea priest, which I believe this portion is actually from Baldur's Gate 1 that I used. Supposed to be this like wild-haired mad sea priest of Umberlee. And Gillian's whole thing, her backstory, is that the bitch queen from the, which is the name of a temple ship devoted to Umberlee, the dark goddess of the sea, basically slaughtered her envoy, and she and her brother became separated. She's not sure what happened, but her only lead is to follow the ship. And the ship, crash landed off the coast of Schult, and then the temple kind of created this Typhoon Palace. I'm switching around some of the backstory on that, but if you haven't read the Turtle package, which is available in the DM's Guild, I'm using that entire Typhoon Palace dungeon, which is pretty cool. I'm using that for Gillian's backstory, and I'm gonna advance her personal quest by having this character be a person that she recognizes as one of the like temple priests that was on that ship, and he's just gone basically mad because of the events that happened. Umberlee kind of cursed them all, turned a lot of them into monsters, and destroyed the ship and all that. And she doesn't necessarily need to learn all that, but just to learn that okay, that ship is probably in Schult somewhere, and something bad happened to it. And she didn't have to even talk to that guy. I'm hopefully going to use some kind of environmental storytelling to reveal that information. But if she does talk to him, then I've got a scene set up for that as well. Although she's got to be very careful of that, because again, I don't want my PCs to be captured by the pirates. Otherwise, the PCs will survive this, and then they will reach Schult. And I realized, and one of my players was talking about this, is they were confused whenever I was talking about these locations like Port Nyanzaru and Camp Righteous. I changed it from Vengeance to Righteous because I want my players to go there first. I believe I talked about that in the last week's Crafting Annihilation. And I realized I haven't given them the map yet, the big map, which I can show here. This is the actual player's map of Schult, which I believe I've edited somewhat, because the player's map showed... It's going to take a second to load, because there's a really cool Roll20 version that has the like interactive Fog of War on it. The player's map normally has Camp Vengeance on there, like it's already known information that Camp Righteous was destroyed, and then they moved to Camp Vengeance. I want to hide that fact and make the players think Camp Righteous is where Undril needs to go, and she thinks that, and then when they show up, it's a horror scene. It's destroyed, and then they get clues to go to Camp Vengeance. So I had to actually add some more of these little bits there, but and you can see I've got the little player's icon right there. So this is the actual map we'll be seeing a lot of during the campaign. This is the map they'll be traveling on. Obviously, I have another DM's map that's got all this information revealed. And my initial thought was I didn't want to show it too early because I didn't want to throw the players into looking at Chult too early because we're not in Chult yet. But I think at the beginning of session 2 tomorrow, I think I'm going to go ahead and reveal this map by having Ortome go ahead and give her quest. She's going to see that the PCs were able to bring back Zendala and generally like perform really well. They're kind of battle beaten, but they're pretty powerful even at level 1, coordinated and all that. And she's going to be impressed and say, okay, here's my quest, which I'm going to use the help the Lord's Alliance, I think, side quest from Tomb of Annihilation. And I'm going to say, and I'm going to give them the quest, which is, where is that? It's here. Find the locations of Orlunga and Nangalore on the map, so go to those locations. And if you do that, and return to Port Nyanzaru, and return to Ortome, because she'll just chill there, they will then gain the services of her boat. For the duration of their adventure. And at that point, and what I'd like to time it is that at that point they've probably learned the location of Jahaka Anchorage and probably learned the location of Wormheart Mine and all those things, but they're thinking with that in the back of their mind, okay, we don't necessarily need to go there on land if we can find these other locations, which obviously I want to take the players to those locations because they're both cool dungeons. And then they can return to Port Nyanzaru and get the boat and then use the boat to go around to those other locations. So I'm hoping that will be the idea there, and I will obviously tease the locations of Orlunga and Nangalore. Nangalore will be teased by the fact that the Company of the Yellow Banner actually made it there. They went down this river here. So after just a couple days of investigating that, sputtering sending stone again, they will actually learn the location of Nangalore, at least the general location of Nangalore, which is on this river south of Kirsabal. Orlunga, I haven't quite decided how I'm going to give them that location yet. They'll probably learn it by Port Nyanzaru. And something I thought about doing is doing like the video game thing of putting like a circle, like a radius, because nobody knows like the exact location of things, but maybe they'll know like the general location of something. So I could maybe paint like a circle on even the Fog of War map and say like, okay, you learned that Orlunga is west of Mabala, so here's where it could possibly be. That might be a little too obvious, but hopefully they'll get the idea and get to those locations as kind of the jumping off point to like, okay, we're in Chult, what should we do? Even before meeting the guides. They've already got Undril, so they go to Camp Righteous and Camp Vengeance, and then from Ortome they know to go to Orlunga and Nangalore. But in introducing all that information, I need to show them this map. So I'm going to show them this map because Ortome will be the one to give them the map. She's like, her idea is that she wants to stop smuggling and get into the like expedition business of like chartering folks to Chult and having these locations is good, and she's been working like part-time on this map. It reminds me of Man on Fire, Jamie Foxx's character, who's got like his big plans to open his fleet of ships or whatever. Like she's got grander designs than what she's currently working at, and she sees the players as an opportunity to get to that next level of career path, I guess. And she's willing to offer the players a boon in her ship, which should be a good thing to have. So I will give the players the map to that, even though we're not in Chult yet. We're going to do the pirate event then, and then we're going to reach the Bay of Chult and do the Aramag event. Our DM used that circle, worked pretty great. Yeah, I think I like that idea. Aramag is a dragon turtle, and it is from the Tomb of Annihilation book. It is the Bay of Chult section. I believe we go to chapter 2 here, player 2 handouts, and Aramag encounter. There it is. Which I don't think this one's to scale, or at least that's a really tiny boat, because I looked at the map and the dragon turtle is not 80 feet long or something. I don't think any creature in D&D is quite that big. Well, there's like Tarrasques and stuff, but it's a neat event that is, again, meant to not be combat. So we might very well not have any combat in session 2. I could definitely see that happening already off the bat. Because again, we've got that pirate scene, which shouldn't have any combat in it, and then we've got this encounter with Aramag, which is a dragon turtle who guards the Bay of Chult. And again, that shouldn't be combat, but I think these are all fun, tense, dangerous situations, at least dangerous to the players. The idea here is that you have to pay a tithe or a tribute to Aramag by just dumping coins and shit into the water. And I'm going to have the players involved because, level 1, they don't have a lot of coins, obviously, but the pirate event just happened, and so they'll have been the ship they're on will have been cleaned out of a lot of their resources. So they're going to dump money over and realize, oh man, we're a little short. Can some of the players contribute? And if they don't, then I'll have Aramag slap the ship and maybe knock some of the players into the water. And if nobody really contributes, I'll probably have like a random crew member come up and throw some, or maybe Undro will make a big show like, oh, this is my last coin, you know, and my asshole players can decide whether or not to join along or not. But in any case, they'll have to give up probably a little bit of coinage, not much. Or can use some kind of a charisma check or something on Aramag. But just kind of hoping for just a fun little situation here. Possibly dangerous. I think I actually put Aramag on the map. Let's see, it'd probably be in the normal Brazen Pegasus map, which is very zoomed in. Yeah, you can see Aramag up there in the corner again. So that map is not, that image, that handout is not to scale, because there's the dragon turtle compared to the ship. So obviously still very big compared to players. My only bummer about this situation is that I've already used a dragon turtle in Princes of the Apocalypse. It was really, really cool. It lasted like 2 sessions where my players just literally took the bait so badly to go exactly where this creature was, and she rose up. I used like Godzilla sound effects and made this big scary thing. They had to haul ass out of there and shut the door for it. You know, it was, none of it was like in combat, but it was made to be this giant fucking monster coming at you. You got to run away. And then later on, I had her, the dragon turtle that was there, it was in that water temple, kind of be involved in a fight somewhat with her lightning breath, or no, it was a steam breath, I believe. So the only bummer is I have used a dragon turtle before, so it's not like a super new and exciting thing. But again, I'm hoping this is still a fun situation and maybe even a bit dangerous. You can see I put a few sharks in there, although I just used sharks in the first session, but they also know how bad sharks can bite. And that will lead them to Port Nyanzaru, which I believe should happen at the end of session 2. I am thinking, and it's always really hard to anticipate how long any one thing is going to happen, because some things go really fast that you think is going to take a while, and other things take a long time because the players are just, we're cutting it up, we're having fun and all that. So usually things probably take a bit longer than I anticipate, but I'm thinking we will end session 2 at arriving in Port Nyanzaru, either just arriving, or we'll maybe even get through the first initial event, which will be Zindar, the Harbormaster. He's like a gold half-dragon, like landing on the ship, basically giving some information to the players and giving them some quests, and then explaining, okay, here's the merchant princes, if you want to do Dinosaur, you know, just basically this big like info dump NPC when the players arrive at Port Nyanzaru. If you're seeing this green line around the map of Port Nyanzaru, that is the Dinosaur racetrack that I have created. And I believe I mentioned this last week, that I had a system built from a DM's Guild supplement that I believe it was just like the guide to running Tomb of Annihilation, that included custom dinosaur racing rules. And I didn't lift those exactly, but I was inspired by them to create the dinosaur race in chunks. So I definitely do plan on having my players be involved in a dinosaur race. I haven't decided yet how I'm going to intertwine that. And again, part of me, I've got a lot of fun urban ideas because this is the only time for that. So you kind of have to like front load that. But on the other hand, I don't know how much, you know, I've watched and read other Tomb of Annihilation recaps, and a lot of people, a lot of DMs are saying, oh man, my players were not in Port Nyanzaru for any time at all. Like, they immediately got into the jungle. And I think this is for 2 reasons. 1, there wasn't enough stuff to do in Port Nyanzaru. And 2, they had the time limit of you have to save people from the Soulmonger. I'm addressing both concerns in that, 1, I'm giving the players hopefully a lot of things to do in Port Nyanzaru. And 2, I have not established a time limit on the Death Curse or the Soulmonger or any of that, other than this kind of vague, like, you should do this before it's too late or kind of thing. But it's going to be a very video game thing where, like Skyrim is like, this town is being attacked by a dragon, and you're like, okay, well, it'll still be attacked in 20 hours when I make it to that town, you know. You don't want to do that too much in D&D. You do want to make some kind of reactivity in the player world, but in this case, I don't want to put a fucking time limit on the entire campaign. That's a horrible idea. I do think it would be nice to include a time limit to where they start feeling the effects of the Soulmonger more as they take longer, but I'm not going to have a hard and fast rule of like, oh, you guys are, you've been in the jungle for 2 weeks and now bad shit's happening, so. But I'll play with that as we go. But I do have events planned in Port Nyanzaru. I'll go over that more probably in next week's Crafting Annihilation, but I would expect players at least to take a full session, if not 2 full sessions, in Port Nyanzaru. I've got 2 purely combat encounters planned. One of them from the City on the Edge Adventurers League module, the one where like a priest has gone basically mad and is like feeding people to zombies. I'm gonna include that one, and I'm gonna include the just an event from the book that happens, which is an undead horde attacks Malar's throat. I'm going to include that as a combat scenario. And like I said, the dinosaur races are there. There's an inn where they can meet with Roka, who will give them the quest to go to Fort Belawarian. And almost every character can continue their side quest in Port Nyanzaru as well. I'm going to include... I don't want the personal... I said side quest, I meant personal quest. I don't want to make the personal quest just this will be one event that happens in one session in the future. I want to make it like there's steps involved that they get to. So, for example, if Maddox just asks around about our December, which is natural that he would, the first step in investigation, he can learn, I think it's like a DC 15 insight check, that he was seen. He'll learn about dragon bait and all that, but not really know any concrete information beyond, like, he was here a few weeks ago and now he's presumably in the jungle somewhere. The 2 most active ones would be George's and Theron's. Theron will find his friend Hugh Hackenstone that's working as a guide here, and obviously they'll have a big, which I still have to write up that meetup, but that will be a big situation between him and Theron, and obviously Hugh will be like, I'm working as a guide, but I really want to take us all back to Wormheart Mine, but it's far, we might, and I think I talked about this last week, but I think what I'll do is Hugh would press the fact that, like, we need a boat, and then the players already have, like, oh, well, we have a way to get a boat, because, Wormheart Mine would be way quicker to get to from the sea, but in order to get that boat, we'll have to first do these quests, and I would probably allow the party to take Hugh with them, even though Hugh's not a very good necessarily a guide. He might know some things about Chult because he survived that trek from Wormheart Mine all the way up, but he wouldn't necessarily know the location of all these places, but I'm hoping that would be a fun role-playing opportunity. The other one would be introducing George's mentor, Mudgraw, from the Turtle package, and give George his quest, which I'm kind of inspired from Monster Hunter, which is a game me and Raymond and Chris played a lot earlier this year online together, and he especially got really into it, so I thought a fun personal quest would just be... that's a phone call. Nope. A fun personal quest would be to hunt monsters in Chult, basically, to prove himself as a warrior, which would be a lot of fun. Both groups I DM for made 3 trips back to Port Nines of our return loot and goodies. That's good. Trevor, did you have like a way for them to portal back to to portal back to Port Nyanzaru, or did they just purely make the trek back? Because I'm very curious if players would decide to make that Vaunt, and maybe it's one of those things where they've got a bunch of quests ready to turn in, so they're like, okay, we really need to make the way back to Port Nyanzaru, so it's worth just trekking through all these encounters again, because I don't think I'm going to honestly use rations at all in this campaign. I know that's a big part of exploring the jungles. It's dangerous, but it just feels like busy work. It doesn't feel like any of my players would respond well to keeping track of minute details like rations and things, and I don't know, it doesn't feel like it would work well for my group. So without that, I don't think I even have that. Like, there wouldn't be a reason to resupply, for example. But you could go back to spend your money and do all that. But I still feel like I would need some kind of a. And again, it wouldn't be like you've got a scroll of teleportation like a Diablo or something. But it'd be like you make it to these ruins, or this cave, or this pillar, and it has this, ability to teleport back to Chult. Maybe even a back and forth, like a one time. Some way do it to where it limits the players. And that'd be something Wakanga would introduce, is the fact that he's got this summoning circle that he doesn't have, that isn't currently connected to anything. So I would like to establish a network connection, but not be able to cheat too much to where I'm breaking the rules of Chult being dangerous by including just this subway system that anybody can take once they're unlocked. The time limit impacted our decisions a lot. It's not a good mechanic. Yes, I agree completely. I think it's not good. I don't know why you would ever put a time limit on an entire campaign like that, because I've read a lot of really just disappointing things about how a lot of players skipped things. Like, once they learned the location of Omu, they just go there as soon as possible. And why wouldn't you if you have that time limit ticking away? In which case, you're missing so much good content in the campaign. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in there. So I'm really not... I'm going to shy away from doing that at all. But I may do something like, by the time they reach Omu and they're contacted by, somebody like, oh, you guys got to hurry now, is probably the time that I would put that in there. But certainly not while they're exploring the jungle. I want them to be able to do stuff. I want them to be able to be like, yeah, we want to solve the pirate problem, or yeah, we want to help Orome and chart these ruins and go visit the Aarakocra and maybe help Azaka with Firefinger, which is a total kind of separate side quest. So I think those would all be good groups. My groups love fighting in the arena. Yeah, I could use the arena. I haven't actually even thought of that. If you notice, I have the dinosaur race ending in the arena. I'm really excited to talk about the dinosaur races and to have that session, because I do think that would be an absolute blast of a session, and probably take the majority of that session, which is why I think Port Nyanzaru will last a while for us, at probably like 2 or 3 sessions. I've not thought about the arena or how to implement that. And again, I'm nervous about almost doing too much in Port Nyanzaru. Like, I mentioned earlier about having a heist in the Merchant Prince Villa and all these different events that can happen, and it would be fun. But you've got this whole jungle out there waiting to explore, and I'm giving the players a lot of quests. Like, they've got these 2 main quests. I guess the one main quest is to find the Soulmonger. They've got the quest to escort Undrill to Camp Righteous, and she's gonna be super like, come on guys, let's fucking go do this. We gotta do this. They're going to get the quest to hunt pirates. They're going to get the quest to go chart those locations. They're going to get the quest to discover the fate of the Yellow Banner. All of these things. Retrieve the Shield Guardian thing. These are all quests they're going to get in Port Nyanzaru. The ones they'll be able to complete, missing an old city, is the one from the Adventurers League, City on the Edge. They'll be able to get that one and complete it in Port Nyanzaru. And then the other one, and they'll get Inet as a reward, another freaking party member to join them. And then they'll get Roka to help infiltrate Fort Belawarian if they want to do that. So I feel like I've got a lot of content here, and you can see I edited this map to try to add the important. It's something I did with Lost Mine of Phandelver and Princes. I add these little things on here because I don't think this map actually. It just has the numbers, which is good for the DM but not good for the players. So I actually put the names of important locations on here that would be relevant to the players, because otherwise you're just wandering around. This is a cool map, though. I think it's Mike Schley does all the map art for Tomb of Annihilation. I can just fucking stare at these little maps, little buildings and everything. It's like their own personal ant farm of people. Let's see, make the trek. I use milestones to level up my people. I'm also doing milestones. Yeah, I do plan on doing that. Once they have discovered hexes, I fast forward gameplay. Once they have... Oh, that's interesting. 6 encounters a day. That sounds awful. Okay, so once they've traveled through a hex, that's considered explored. That's a very interesting way to do it. So you can create literally like highways on the map, essentially. I don't like the realism of that. I think that takes down of the jungle's danger. That makes it like there's never anything going to creep up behind us. Like, we're kind of clearing this path through the jungle, and we're just kind of clearing it out wholesale. And I don't know, doesn't that feel like it detracts from the danger? But that is definitely an interesting way of doing it. And that solves the problem of being able to trek back to Port Nyanzaru if you know it's just going to be like a free trek. Now, if you come back out of Port Nyanzaru, no, because you said if it's discovered, so you'd be able to go back and forth. That's interesting. I'll have to think on that. I haven't thought about doing that. I feel like that makes it... That takes away from the mysticism and danger of the jungle, though. Your group likes some roleplay, but not so hardcore. They want weight burdens, food rations, and other reasons complications. Yes, Icarus Gaming, you are 100% right. I know you've watched most, if not all, of our videos, so you've got a pretty good handle on it, and I think we're on the same page on this one. Definitely no... and there's no right or wrong about that. It's just whatever group wants to do it. Certainly there's low magic worlds that want to do encumbrance rules and all that, and those rules are there, which is what's great about 5th edition and D&D in general, is you can kind of mold these rules to how you want to run your campaign. And I'm pretty sure between me and my players, we really don't want to do a lot of the bookkeeping, rations, and encumbrance and all those kind of things, which, hopefully that doesn't make Tomb of Annihilation, the jungle, less dangerous by taking away the whole ration thing. But I just feel like it would be... Well... And here's what I'm going to do, and I mentioned this in last week's crafting and obviously in our session 0, is the players will not automatically long rest in the jungle at night. Not to like punctuate everything with the clapping emoji, but they will get the benefit of a short rest, but they will not automatically long rest. And I want to make the jungle feel like it is a big, dungeon crawl. And I think that will add to the difficulty without me having to artificially add the difficulty too much. And it's not necessarily like you never long rest. I'm going to judge how well the players do. If they're really beaten, then, and they've done a good job so far, then they might find a cave during a storm and be able to get a long rest in. There'll be stuff in there where they can long rest eventually, but I just don't want to automatically long rest because I feel like that's a big hindrance to including any kind of random encounters on any campaign, especially later levels. Which thankfully I feel like this one's balanced well because there really aren't any random encounters later because the players basically make it to Omu at level like 6 or 7, and I think I've got it balanced where their jungle exploration adventures should be over by the time they reach Omu, because once you reach Omu, there's zero incentive to leave it. And then once they reach Omu, I think I've got it set up where their milestone should be that they hit level 7. So that really all the jungle exploration is level 6 or below, which will also help make the jungle more dangerous because at that point they're just starting to reach that kind of superhero status, and then they've kind of stopped doing those random encounters, so that won't be a thing anymore. So it's really just made to help make the jungle a little more difficult. We did do a Lotar Eagle moment. My wizard was given a one-time use summoning a giant bird that flew us from Orlong and Hackmar. Yeah, that's a good idea. One time use, I'm thinking maybe like somebody literally gets like a magical item that can teleport people like once or something. Some kind of limited. And I was thinking about using those arcane circles because it's mentioned that there is an arcane circle in the heart of Ubtao, although I think that teleports Valendra back to Fae, just giving her a quick egress, which that's a weird scenario anyway. And then there's one of Wakanga's things, but I think I'm going to establish that there will be these arcane circles somewhere, but I have to limit them, I think, and maybe just put them in like weird random or dangerous places or something. I don't know how I'll do it yet. I've got time before the players get to the jungle. I really do feel like they will spend probably a solid 2 or 3 sessions in Port Nyanzaru, and then especially if they decide to take that hook to go to Fort Belawarian, if you look at the map, it makes way more, and we'll go to the DM map this time. From a player perspective, and I assume everybody plays RPGs this way, where you look at your map and you say, okay, well, here's where I have 4 quests, so I'm going to go here and take those 4 quests out. Or you've got like, okay, I've got one quest up here way on its own, I'll go do that one first, then go down and do the rest. And I'm thinking that'll be the case here because they'll get one quest to go to Fort Belawarian, and it's like way the fuck out from everything else. And there's some nice bits where they can learn more information there. That's kind of more the heist mission too, where the Zentarum agent basically wants them to help sneak him in to get him information that leads to the pirates. So I'm hoping all this information will be cool for the players. And that could be a complete non-combat scenario, but it does involve some traveling up here and back. So I'm hoping that will be done earlier. And at that point, I will probably keep the players pretty low level. But again, that could easily take up a whole session as well. So it'll be a while, I think, before we even make it into the jungles of Chult. So I've got a while to prep and definitely some more crafting and annihilation episodes to do before I even have to worry about the jungle crawl and hex crawl, which I'll go over all of those plans that I have. But yeah, I think we've got plenty of time before then to do Port Nyanzaru and Fort Belawarian. And by the way, my milestone leveling, I'll have the players reach level 2 when they reach Port Nyanzaru, which again should be at the end of next session. So we'll still be level 1 for next session, and then assuming everything goes in a plan according to plan, say that on the DM's tombstone. When they make it to Port Nyanzaru, I will say, okay, whenever you guys first, long rest, I assume you want to find a place to nap down, you guys will make it to level 2. And I will keep them in level 2 for all of Port Nyanzaru. And then I haven't quite decided if they want to go to do Fort Belawarian. I may keep them level 2 for that until they come back. But at this point, by the time they exit Port Nyanzaru, they're done with all those initial, they got all the quests, they've done all those scenarios, they've done the dinosaur racing, all those things. By the time they enter the jungle, they'll be level 3. So that already puts them in a better situation, and they've got all those NPC allies, so I don't see it being as dangerous as I think, and obviously I'm the one in charge of the encounters, so I think they'll be alright. And level 3 is a better established base for like, okay, players aren't going to die from a random pseudo-dragon biting their hand. So we're wrapping things up, but real quick I'll answer some questions. Are you making your group buy the Charter of Exploration and get taxed on goods when returning? I don't know about the taxed on goods thing. That's the first I've read of it. The Charter of Exploration is something that I would recommend I'll probably have Zindar again and be the info dump NPC where he'll mention that like, hey, this group operates out of Fort Belawarian. They're very militaristic. I think it's the Lord's Alliance, like straight up, or a shoot off of theirs or something. I'll have to read more about that, but it's heavily suggested that you buy this charter if you want to explore the jungle. They're not affiliated with Port Nyanzaru, but they do patrol the jungle. And if they find you without the charter, you'll be considered like, they lay claim to Chult basically, so you'll be like illegally trespassing or something, which could have some interesting complications. So I could include that in there. And maybe that would be incentive, an additional incentive to go to Fort Belawarian, maybe they'll try to like steal a charter. I could make that a possibility or forge one or something. So that could be interesting. I don't know anything about the taxation on goods though. I'd have to explain more about that one. But otherwise, I think I've gone through everything I'm going to do in session 2, which is the offering the quest from Ordomé to give them the map, to find the locations, and then I will do the scripted event with the pirates, with Lascalar showing up and throwing his weight around, and then doing the Aramag event at the Bay of Chult, and then arriving in Port Nyanzaru, and then we'll just hover through Port Nyanzaru as we have time for that session, which I assume it will be just the very beginnings of it, if any, depending on how those earlier events happen. So I can see us ending tomorrow's session, arriving in Port Nyanzaru, and then having all the players reach level 2, which should be pretty fun. So I think that will wrap things up for this week's Crafting Annihilation episode. If you do like my content, please check out my Patreon at patreon.com/RogueWatson, and of course tune in tomorrow for our next Tomb of Annihilation live play session.